Welcome everyone to this short video about the SPHN metadata catalogs for datasets. My name is Sabine Österle and I'm the lead for the Semantic Interoperability Strategy and the FAIR Data team in the SPHN Data Coordination Center. Before I would like to give you an introduction to the SPHN metadata catalog, a few words about SPHN in general. So SPHN, the Swiss Personalized Health Network, was founded 9 years ago, and actually it encompasses different players around the healthcare research in Switzerland, ranging from university hospitals to cantonal hospitals, but also other players like the Swiss Clinical Trial Unit or the SAKK. All of these players have together one aim, which is to build fair data infrastructures which enable the responsible, secure, and legally compliant sharing of data for research projects. All of the activities of the SPHN are coordinated by its Data Coordination Center, which also established the SPHN Metadata Catalog. So researchers within SPHN, but also in general, they have to go through several steps when they do their research projects. So in the beginning, there's the project planning where you have to decide what is the data I want to use, what is my research question, where do I get this data from. Then actually when you have this clear, you initiate the project, so you apply for funding, you actually set up legal agreements with the different institutions who share the data. You may seek an ethics approval for your research project. When all of this is set, then actually the work really starts. So actually your partners are starting to prepare the data. They start to do the semantic coding of the data and prepare the data in an interoperable format. The data is then transferred in Switzerland to what we call the trusted research environment. In our case, this is called Biomed where actually the data from the different partners can be sharedly analyzed, and then hopefully a lot of good research papers can be published. So now we are at the end of a project. Is it really the end? No. Because of course, all of the data sets which were generated, there was a lot of energy, a lot of work going into the curation of this data set, all the quality control which are done on this data sets. So these data sets are a valuable asset for other projects to be reused. And actually, to make this reuse of the data happen, this is why we established the SPHN Metadata Catalog. So what is the aim of the SPHN Metadata Catalog? So the SPHN Metadata Catalog is an online catalog which has rich metadata of datasets which are available for reuse. You can find it here under this URL fdp.dcc.zip.swiss. And I think please stay with me for a few more minutes before you actually try it out. Please follow on the presentation to the end. So what was very important for us to have something which is both machine and human readable, and we do so by actually following the FAIR data point specification and also enable API access to our metadata catalog so that machines can actually really access that data and actually analyze it. But of course, for the humans, we also needed to do something. So we actually, on top of the FAIR data point, we established a visualization component, which we call SPHN schema scope. And here you will be actually able to explore the schemas of the project, so which data elements are included in a specific data set, but also their abundance. So how often are certain data elements present in that data set to really give you an idea of the richness of these data sets. Of course, all of this is fully FAIR compliant, and I think I strongly believe that with having such a metadata catalog, the reuse of the data sets which were generated in SPHN will be enhanced and hopefully lead to a lot of good additional research projects. Under the hood, so how is the SPHN metadata catalog built up? We use a kind of set of standards on the basis. It's RDFS. So this is the kind of very basic standard for which we represent our metadata in. We then use controlled vocabularies like the Dublin Core or DCAT to actually describe the different fields. For example, what is an author, what is a license, what is an abstract. These different elements are connected via what is called the fair data point ontology. So this is about the relation between these different elements. On the technical side, there is the fair data point specification, which we follow. And also there is a reference implementation for fair data point, which we actually use for our SPHN fair data point. However, we extended both the set of standards, but also the reference implementation to fit our needs. And here on the standard side, we actually added the so-called void standard. So this is used to actually represent our quantitative information. So the count information, which I talked to you before. So how often is a certain element available in the data set. We also extended the fair data point ontology with what we call the SPHN metadata schema by additional elements, which we actually got as a feedback from our users that they are very important to describe their data sets. Similar on the technical side, we extended the reference implementation to fit our need, and that is actually what is the SPHN fair data point. So how does this look like for the humans? You can see it here on these screenshots. So if you go to the SPHN Metadata Catalog, you will be represented with different catalogs. Each catalog is actually one project. And actually, if you would click here on this Swiss Pet Health project, you would be actually lead to this page, which you can see on the right, where you can see more extensive information about the Swiss Pet Health project. For example, what's the acronym? What is the schema which this data conforms to? What is the abstract? The abstract here is truncated for visibility reasons. What's the temporal coverage? What's the principal investigated? What's the sources of the data, etc. and etc. For the human, of course, for the machine, this is all represented, as I said before, in RDF. So this is just a snippet of the RDF, and you can nicely see here how our controlled vocabulary comes into place. So you can see here different elements coming from the Dublin core or from the DCAT, and also some of the elements which we defined in SPHN and how actually this looks like. But I fully have to agree, this is not really intuitive for the humans to read, and that's really why we actually developed schema scope. So again, from each of the catalogs, from each of the projects, you can go to the visualization components, which will lead you to a web page where I show you the screenshot here, where you can actually start browsing the schema of the different projects. So you can see here the different data elements of the project in blue. So this is actually what is represented as classes in the RDF. And then, for example, you can also see in red here, what are the standards used to code these data elements. You have different selection possibilities here on the left to actually zoom in or only show certain concepts and how they are connected to each other. You can then also switch on a toggle to actually also present you with the count information. So then actually you can see here that the size of the bubbles is actually indicating how often this element is represented in the data. So a smaller bubble means there's less instances of this kind, while a bigger one represents more instances. So we can see here, for example, in this example, we have 429 instances of this oncology disease assessment. And I think also here a screenshot of the biggest bubble, which actually is SNOMED CT. So you can see here that in this data set, we have close to 300,000 SNOMED CT instances. And also here you can see that they are somehow splitted over around 500 distinct codes. So you can see that there's a lot of codes which are the same for example, different patients. But I think it can also show how rich the coding of the SPHN datasets is. With that, actually, I already would like to come to the end. So I would like to thank especially my team, Deepak, Harald, Philip, and Hamid for implementing this fair data point, but also the rest of the SPHN DCC, which was involved in that project. Here on the right, you can see different resources to the SPHN metadata catalog itself, but also a link to our Read the Docs, which has the full documentation of the implementation. In case you have any questions, please contact me at sabine.oesterle@siv.swiss. Thanks a lot for your attention, and please try out the metadata catalog. And also, we are very happy to receive feedback in case you have any suggestions for further improvement. Thanks a lot and have a nice day.